Hello, Vegas. This is Monica Leana, where I talk about books while doing my makeup. As you could see, my makeup is already on. I wish I would have thought about this before I started doing my makeup this morning, but I didn't. So we're just gonna be chilling on the couch. We're gonna be real relaxed right now. So I finished Dismount yesterday, which is the 5th book in the Off Balance series. I am so sad that it's over. I now have a gaping hole in my heart that I don't think anybody could feel. It's so sad. But anyways, we're gonna do a quick rundown of the 5th book, and then I'll do a quick recap of like what I feel about the series, which I feel like is very obvious. I loved it. So it starts where in the 4th one ended, which is she got rushed to the hospital because basically I'm assuming she got pushed into glass or something like that. So she started bleeding and everything like that. So what happened was she got rushed to the hospital. She had a miscarriage. They had to take the baby out. Kova is now in jail for what the dad say is rape, but he ended up lying. It was for assault. So he's in jail. She's in the hospital. Her biological mother is now in the picture, just so you're aware. And she ends up begging the dad to not make her go home, because he's like, as soon as you're done with the hospital, we're going back to Florida, and that's gonna be that. Like, you're gonna finish up your senior year, like, and that's it. And she begs the dad, being like, no, I'm so close to being elected for the Olympics, because she has to go to this camp, and then she has, I think, one more trial, and if she gets qualified, she gets to go to the Olympics. So she like begs him, like, please, please, please don't do this to me, like, I'm so close. Which, of course, the dad caves and allows it to happen. But basically says that she toes out of line one more goddamn time, he will take everything, because he's paying for everything. So he's just like, just so you're aware, one time and it's all gonna be gone. Like, do not mess with me and everything like that. Like, I'm gonna be monitoring your phone calls. I will, like, I think she's gonna have like somebody watching, making sure that she's going to the gym and home and like nowhere else and anything like that. And that's that. So she agrees to it. And eventually, so Kova's still in jail. Like, she goes back to the gym eventually with some BS story of like what happened. And Kova's still in jail, which she's like, why is he still in jail? And it's because of charges and stuff like that. The dad hasn't dropped them. Well, she ends up begging the dad to drop the charges, because she's like, I need my coach. Like, I need him. Like, I get it that you have problems with him in our relationship, but I need him as a coach, because I wouldn't have gotten this far without him, which is true. She wouldn't have gotten to the point where she was. Like, he did push her to the max and like got her to the level that needed to be. And she is the talent, but like, you know, he helps. So eventually the dad lets the guy, drops the charges and everything. She's not told this. He just shows up one time when they're going, I forgot where they were going, but they were at the airport, and all of a sudden Kova shows up and everything like that. They're not allowed to talk or anything like that, but you know, it's the whole like, oh my God, he's actually here, he's out, which is like, oh, I can imagine that was nice. So she ends up going to the trials. Of course, she got elected to go to the Olympics. So now she's going to the Olympics, and it's a whole big deal. Like I said, they're still not talking, like, because anytime they're around each other, it's in a professional setting and they're not allowed to talk. So like at this point, they're still not talking. And it's just been a bunch of like the Olympic stuff. This is like heavy Olympics. So the US team that she's on ends up getting gold. And then her personally, because she got qualified to do like the individual stunts the next day, and she ends up getting like, I think, silver. She didn't get gold, which is fine, because I mean, I still think that's fine. I get it that you won gold, but at the same time, silver has to be amazing, definitely, because it's like you already technically got gold with the team, and then you individual got silver. Like, it's still a great time. So that happens, and then this is when the drama finally comes around. She sneaks to Kova's room. Avery, which is her best friend, ends up kind of like helping her out to get to Kova and stuff like that, so the dad doesn't find out and everything like that. Hi, Emery. So, all right, I knew he was gonna jump on me. This is Emery, by the way. Yes, baby. So goes to see Kova, and this is where you can tell Rhea's age. So Kova talks to her and he's like, hey, we need to take a break. And she's like, a break? What do you mean? Which I can understand, because a break usually means negative. But he's just like, I'm meaning it in the sense of like, I need time to get everything settled. And this is how I see it too. I'm like, okay, this is great. It's like, okay, she's gonna go to Oklahoma because that's who she decided to go for the university. You go there, let's settle the dust. Let's me get a divorce and like figure shit out. Give it about a year of like, you know, trying to stay low. And then we can pick up. And by the time we pick up, nobody can say anything, because it's like, you are a full-blown adult. I will, like I said, get a divorce and like hopefully get rid of some like the blackmail stuff that they try to do. And by that time, nobody would be able to say anything. They may not like it, but they can't say anything. Well, this is where Rhea shows her age, because she gets all upset and is basically saying that he's not fighting for her, which is like, no, I don't see it that way. I see it in the sense of like, he's trying to be smart. And she gets upset. She's like, I don't have time, which I get it. She has lupus and she has the kidney disease. So in her mind, she's like, I could die tomorrow. And like, I want to spend a little bit of time that I do have to be with you. And he's just like, I get it that you're having like medical issues. He's like, but you're not thinking smart, which, like I said, I agree. But I'm also 31 years old, so it's like, I see it that way. But she sees it in the emotional of like, you're not picking me. And he's like, no, that's not at all what I'm doing. It's like, I'm just trying to like do it smart. Anyways, so they break up. Basically they break up. Like, he just wants a break, but she's basically like, well, if you don't want me now, you'll never want me, and everything like that. So they kind of just break up. So a month goes by and she's getting stuff situated, because she has to move out of that apartment and just do the medical stuff. She has to go see to her doctor. They got to coordinate who she's going to see in Oklahoma and start her dialysis and anything like that, and how that's all going to go about, and talking to her coaches in Oklahoma. So a month goes by. She's about to leave Florida for good and like go to Oklahoma. Kova finally messages her. It's like, hey, can I come see you? And that's when they get into this whole big fight. And because he's basically thinking like, we're just kind of chilling out, we're going to be together. And she's like, no, I'm leaving. And he's like, what does that mean? She's like, I'm leaving, and I'm leaving without you. Like, we're no longer going to be together. And he's like, no, that's not what I wanted. He's like, I just needed time. And she's like, there is no more time and everything. So he ends up, I guess you could say, caving in a way, because he tells her, like, he goes there purposely to tell her, like, I started the divorce proceedings. That's the dog, by the way. I started the divorce proceedings. And she doesn't seem really happy, and he's just like, why aren't you happy? Like, this is what we want. And she's like, well, if that's what you want. And he's like, what do you mean that's what I want? Like, we both want this. And she's just like, okay, whatever. She's very nonchalant, and she basically says, like, you know, I'm done. Like, you're a little too late. So he ends up kind of caving and saying like, well, I'm going to take the deal that the coaches wanted, because like, he has this gym and there's other coaches, and they basically wanted to buy him out. So he's like, I'm going to do it tomorrow and anything like that. I'm going to sell the gym and I'm going to come with you to Oklahoma. And she's like, no, don't do that. Like, why would you do that? And he's just like, he was like, I already had this stuff in place. He was just like, I'm just going to speed it up for you. And she's like, no, I don't want you to. Which this pisses me off, because I'm kind of like, he's saying everything that you want. Like, you wanted him to go. Now all of a sudden you don't want him to. I'm like, you're doing a lot of mixed signals, Rhea. But I do understand this statement. So she ends up saying how the reason she doesn't want him to say this now is because like, she's been crying and stuff like that. She was like, I don't want him to say this because I've been crying, which I'm like, I get that. You don't want to feel like you manipulated them. It's like, I want you to say because you want to say it, not because I'm crying. And it's like, I'm not trying to manipulate you and everything like that. And that's how I feel like what I've done. So I'm like, okay, I kind of understand that statement. I get it. But at the same time, it's just like, he's trying to do exactly what you want. And now all of a sudden you don't want it. It's like, Rhea, you're getting on my nerves. You're getting on my nerves. But whatever. So he leaves. and he ends up coming back a day afterward, and they end up having like goodbye sex and everything. He's basically like, this is not goodbye. She's like, yeah, it is. And he takes her to the airport because they already established that he was like, I'll take you to the airport and everything like that. And the airport scene was kind of so sad. I could just picture it in my mind, the emotions. Like, they're not really talking and they're just like trying not to let each other go. But like, once she goes up those escalators, like, that's it. And I was like, I could just imagine it. So that happened. And then this is when it started to, I feel like, kind of get a little fast. I get it, you got to start wrapping up the book, but whatever. So a year goes by, which I'm like, sounds plausible. A year goes by, and he ends up sending her journals, and basically the journals have all his emotions and everything in it. So she reads them and everything, and like, that's that year. Year 2 comes around, which I'm like, year 2, damn, okay. This is a long time to wait for somebody that said they were coming for me. And it's more journals and on New Year's and anything like that. And it's even more, and he's like going into it. He's basically, you could tell he's getting depressed and like going down a spiral. And he's basically like, I need to fix myself before I come see you and everything like that. Which I'm like, I get the whole point of like why they were in a way staying apart. Because it's like, I do think she needed to grow. Because like, she got with him when she was like 16, and she never had anything else. That is like, I can get the whole point of like, okay, you're now in college, you need to grow kind of as an adult without Kova and stuff like that. So like, he's trying to give her that time, which I'm like, I understand that. I think that's a very grown-up thing to do. It's hard, but it's a very grown-up thing to do. Come here, mama. This is Miss Ava. So get that. Year 3 comes around, which I'm like, damn, 3 years? That's a long time. Year 3 comes around, and she doesn't get any journals. And she's like, excuse me, where the hell are my journals? She actually texts him. She hasn't spoken to him in 3 years. Like, because she doesn't write to him. Whenever she gets the journal, she never writes to him. She's kind of like, it's in his court, which I'm like, I can understand that. And year 3 comes around, she doesn't get no journals. She's like, where the hell are my journals? And she's like freaking out. Week goes around, and she's like, where the fuck are my journals? Like, you better send them to me. And of course, eventually she gets a knock on the door, and it's him. He came to get her. 13 years later, this is the epilogue. It now turns to Kova's perspective, which I'm like, I love that it was Kova's perspective. I'm like, yes, we never got any of his perspective. They are now married. They have 4 kids and 1 on the way, which I'm like, damn, okay. There's a lot of babies. So like, they got 4 daughters, and then like, she wanted to try one more time to like give him a boy, which obviously this one ends up being a boy. They are now partners in the gym. Like, they kind of bought their way back into the gym as partners. So like, you know, which is great. So like, they both are coaches. They have 4 kids /5. They talk about her medical conditions, that like, she's like, you know, she's doing better, but at the same time, like, she still is dealing with lupus and everything like that. So there's a little bit of struggle. They talk about how they were infertile for a while, and like, them having their kids are kind of a miracle in a way, because she was infertile for like a long time. They had to do fertility treatments. They talk about how her dad ended up dying and everything at one point. He had like a heart attack and died. And she's now close with her biological mother. And that's it. They don't really talk about Avery. They don't talk about her brother. And they don't talk about really anybody else. But like, pretty much at this point, like, everything's wrapped up in a nice little bow. We're all married. We're all good to go. We all got our kids. Which is funny how many kids they had. I was like, damn, 5 kids? That's a lot of kids for like 2 people that didn't want kids, that all of a sudden got 5 kids. I was like, okay. And then that's how it's wrapped up. I do think it was slightly rushed around the ending, like I said, but I kind of get it, because it's just like, we do got to start wrapping things up. So it's like, yeah, I get it, but it's like a little bit rushed at the ending in my point. But anyways, I love this series. I think this series was so good. The sex was great, and it was dirty. It was just like, usually when you read smut, they try to be somewhat delicate, I guess, in a way. Like, I guess you could say it's like, you know, I don't know. They kind of make it delicate. I'm like, this wasn't delicate at all. I was like, they were dirty as hell. Definitely the more progression it went just like balls to the wall. Like I told you, they cutting each other and playing with the blood. I was like, what the I was like, you guys are gross. So the sex was great, the romance was great, and it was such a slow burn. Like there wasn't any insta love. There wasn't like, they had so much conflict. To tell you the truth, they were very toxic at one point. I mean, I think they mellowed it out eventually, but for a while in reality it was just like they are so toxic. Like they're hitting each other in a way. Like he never like smacked her, but he did like manhandle her. Like he would like hold her like against her will and make her not leave, and she hit him and stabbed him, and like they would say stuff to each other because she ends up like admitting that she had sex with Hayden, and he flips out, like literally gets to her face and was like, you better fucking tell me that you're lying, or I'm gonna fucking kill you and him. And she just is like, nah, I fucked him here and I did it like this and everything like that. Oh my God. And I thought he was like, I swear I thought he was gonna go murder somebody, because he was just like freaking out. I was like, this is like the toxic relationship of like, this is not actually a healthy thing. But it was so good, and the way that the author presented it, and just made you just want to keep reading it. And like I said, it was never slow, it was never dull. There was plenty of gymnastic stuff, so if you really get bored with it, I kind of glazed over that a little bit here and there, I'm not gonna lie, but at the same time it wasn't that much that I did enjoy it. It was just I glazed over a little bit because more or less I was just trying to get to their relationship. But like, yeah, I highly recommend this. I don't think it was weird. Like, I know a lot of people have a problem with the whole age gap, and I'm like, I get it, but at the same time I'm like, I don't feel like it ever really played into it. It wasn't predatory, it wasn't like creepy. Like, tell you the truth, it wasn't even much of a power dynamic or imbalance, more than like the coach thing. I'm like, I feel like the coach / gymnast was the more power imbalance than it was because of her age. Like, it didn't seem like she was really all that young, at least the way she read, and how at times she was very mature. Not all the times, but at times she was very mature. It didn't seem like she was so young. So if you have a problem with it, I understand, but it's like, I don't feel like it was a big factor in my opinion. Like, other than the fact of like, yeah, it was conflict of why they had to sneak around, but it wasn't like, I feel gross that this young girl's with this guy. It's like, kind of didn't notice it all that much. And then the last thing I would say is, I don't think this is what would happen. I don't think she will do it, because this book I think came out last year, and I know there was a lot of conflict with this book, that it's just like, I don't think the author will do this. But if the author ever wants to write Cover's perspective, like the same 5 books but Cover's perspective, I will read it. Like, because you know how they did that with like 50 Shades of Grey, and I think they're doing it with Twilight or something like that. If she wanted to do that with Cover's perspective, oh my God, I would eat that shit up so hard, because between the two of them, I like Cover better. It could be because I have a crush on the Mr. Russian man, but it's also like, I think it's just because I'm older. I understood his perspective a lot better. Rhea was getting on my nerves with her just blatant emotions. Like, she was constantly crying. I am not a crier. She was constantly crying. She was constantly just like, so much emotion, which I'm like, I get it, it is emotional, I'm not saying that, but it's just like, there was just moments of like, you could tell that she's 18 or 17, because it's like, yes, she's being very rash. Whereas like him, even though he was kind of quiet and everything like that, you could tell that like he did stuff with purpose. So to me, I'm kind of like, I just agree with Kova a lot better. So I'm like, yeah, if there ever wants to be a moment where she wants to write the 5 same books, but Kova's perspective, I would love that. Because there's still a lot of stuff that we don't really know, in the sense of like what happened to Katya. Like, we kind of know what happened to Katya, but like what really happened, like what did Joy and Katya really do to like blackmail him, and then like how he dealt with Frank and everything like that, and like maybe him dealing with like rumors and stuff like that, because Rhea kind of had to deal with rumors. So I'm like, I would be so interested in knowing like Kova's perspective on like how he dealt with stuff, because he didn't talk a lot at times, which that's what annoyed me the most out of this book, is like their lack of communication. Because there was just moments where it's like if they just said what they needed to say, a lot of this drama wouldn't have happened. Granted, that's not how relationships works, because we all know how this works. We don't fucking tell our significant other stuff sometimes. Like we need to, but at times it's just easier not to, and then that's how miscommunication happens. So I get it. But anyways, love the books. All 5 of the books are great. There's not one book that I'm like, you can kind of skip that one. It's like, no, they're all great. I was like, granted, I do think the 4th one is my favorite. 100% the 4th one is my favorite. But in general, they're all good. I will probably reread this at some point. I'm going to give it enough time to like really forget. But it's like, this is a book that it's like, I will probably reread. And I don't really reread books, but I will definitely do it for this whenever I'm feeling like I need some toxic love. But anyways, I'll wrap this up. It's already been like 20 minutes and it didn't need to be this long. But yeah, loved it, recommend it, 5 out of 5. Just